We're rolling now. Okay, Zach, great. All right, we're rolling. Thank you for being patient. I have no idea what I did wrong, but anyway, let's get this show on the road. The topic for this evening is what is a safe driver? I think everybody has an opinion on that. Um, what I want to see is what are the elements. Now, I've got a cheat sheet that I'm going to show you. That's what I think. That's what I think a safe driver is, or a super safe driver. So, number one on the 7 elements of a super safe driver is called priority. What that means is you can't be a super safe driver or even a safe driver unless you think about driving. The best fighter pilots, they think about flying. The best helicopter pilots, they think about flying. The best basketball players, they think about playing basketball. The best golfers, they think about golf. Oh, and by the way, um, best positive energy out to Tiger Woods, who was involved in some kind of a rollover SUV accident today out in California, I guess fairly recently, within the last few hours. And he's in critical condition, but stable. And I guess he injured both of his legs. He rolled down a hill, apparently, in some kind of it looked like a Lexus SUV or something like that. So I hope that he ends up okay and can play golf again and heals up. Accidents are horrible things. And that's why I'm in the business I'm in, is to try to prevent them. And Emilio, welcome. Glad. I don't know what I did wrong, man. What I did was I just started again. I just started with a live video because the one that I put in my events didn't work. So we can talk about that later. So anyway, number one on the list is priority. If your driving is not a priority, you're probably not going to be a very safe driver. You know, if it's no big deal to you, if you make mistakes on the road, you have very low standards, you're probably not going to be as safe a driver, as good a driver, and you're not going to be a super safe driver if it's not a priority. Just like just like me and computers, I don't seem to be getting much better very quickly. And it's somewhat of a priority, but it's not a big priority. So that proves my own point, I guess. So number one on the list is priority. Number two on the list is awareness. So being aware. What we teach in the super safety street course is to look as far as you can ahead, as far as you can behind, using the center rear view mirror, looking left in the left side mirror, right side mirror, read all the signs, check your gauges, look for markings on the road. If you're coming to an intersection, look for pedestrians, bicyclists, etc., etc. So you're gathering as much information as far ahead as you can possibly gather it. And what are you looking for? You're looking for clues to potential hazards. For instance, if you in the distance see that the lanes are going from 2 lanes to 1 lane on your side of the roadway, that's a clue. That's a clue that soon you're going to have to merge. And the sooner you can see that, I mean, if you look way in the distance and you only see a 2 lane and you're currently on a 4 lane, that's a clue. So if you're going to have to merge anyway, why not merge early rather than to wait till the last minute and then you're boxed in by other cars the risk goes up and it makes it harder for you to merge. And then if you get somebody that they don't want to be polite, they can really put the squeeze on you, and you may have to stop and wait for a space. When you do that, of course, you back up traffic. When you stop abruptly, that increases your risk of getting rear-ended, and the whole situation could have been avoided just by looking way ahead. And a lot of people don't do that. I mean, they'll look to the next car or maybe the next car or two, but some people don't look as far as they can possibly see and look for potential traffic patterns. Like if you see, brake lights, or you see people swerving for no apparent reason that you can see, but they're still swerving. There's got to be a reason for that, even if you don't know what it is. So by that extra awareness, if you can see patterns for potential hazards well before other drivers, then you're going to be a safer driver because you're going to have more time to make good decisions. And we'll come back to that in a moment. So number two, like I said, is awareness. And we really work on this day after day in the Super Safety Street Course. It's all about awareness, because if you're not aware, you're probably not going to make the best decisions because you didn't get all of the information that was out there. Or when you got it, you didn't have a lot of time to make a decision. Your time was compressed because, oh, you just saw that sign, or, oh, you just saw that bicyclist that came out of nowhere. So awareness is a big deal. And we want to work on, I'm going to turn off the other computer now since I actually, through total luck, figured out how to get online. And third is techniques. And this is another big deal. Do you know the proper techniques so that if you're in an emergency situation, you know what to do? Specifically, do you know how to stop your car in the shortest distance? There's a specific technique for that. And then if you know it intellectually, can you do it reflexively without even thinking about it and without it triggering fear or doubt or hesitation? Because in a real emergency, you just don't have time for that. It's split second, which is why we try to commit all of the emergency procedures to reflex, how to stop in the shortest distance, how, proper hand position. Mike, we went over that. I hope you got it. I hope you heard it. So that in the event that you have to do a swerve, your hands are in the right position. Are you comfortable with using maximum acceleration on your vehicle? If you've got a slower vehicle, then you have to compensate for that by being more aggressive, more assertive, so that you can get up to speed more quickly. If you have a car or a truck or an SUV with more power, then you don't have to be as aggressive because your vehicle responds more quickly to what you're asking it to do. And as I said in previous episodes, that's my preference. I don't particularly enjoy a vehicle that doesn't have high capabilities, or at least reasonable capabilities, as far as accident avoidance. But some of the things we go over in the class, and you can just ask yourself, do you know what to do in the event of a system brake failure? In other words, you're just minding your own business. You don't know why, but you press on the brake and it goes all the way to the floor. You pump it, it goes all the way to the floor. You have absolutely no brakes. What do? There's a procedure that if you're in that particular emergency, it should just click in like reflex. We go over that day after day after day. If you had a throttle stick, in other words, you're just cruising along, again, minding your own business, and the car goes to full throttle and it wasn't anything that you did. So now the car is accelerating at full power. What do? This is a particularly scary one because every moment of indecision that you have, of hesitation or doing the incorrect thing, your vehicle is accelerating dramatically, usually towards something solid. You know, if this happens and you're out in the middle of Nevada in uncharted roadway, I guess it's not that big of a deal. But if it happens to you, if you're in a downtown area or even a rural area coming up on an intersection or a curve, then it's a very big deal. Again, there's procedures that you can just knock this out immediately, and it's not even a big deal. Do you know what they are? If you had that particular situation, would you and could you immediately respond as a function of reflex as opposed to intellectual thought? That's the $100 question. If you're at a two-way stop and you pulled out as far as you can possibly pull out and you still can't see, in other words, if you go out another inch, the nose of your vehicle will be taken off by big trucks and you still can't see. There's no one else in the car but you, and there's no other way to go around it. What do? There's a procedure. It's pretty easy if you know how to do it. But if you don't know how to do it, it may not occur to you. If you're on a downhill, icy road and it's really slippery and you're being really careful and you slow down to 5 miles an hour and you put on the brakes and it goes into ABS and the car is still not stopping. It's going really slow. You're down to 2, 3 miles an hour, but you can't come to a complete stop. And you're going down towards this intersection that has big trucks. Well, it's showtime. Do you know what to do or don't you? Again, if you know reflexively, it just kicks in, no big deal. If you don't, panic can come in, and that's not usually your friend. And there you are going out into an intersection, hoping not to get broadsided or T-boned by other vehicles. One wheel off-road recovery, most people know, if you're not paying attention and the car's drifting off the road and one wheel goes off into a soft shoulder of either dirt or mud or snow, that can yaw the vehicle or even get it like totally sideways and flip it over. A lot of people jerk the wheel because it surprises them. That can destabilize the vehicle and make it worse. What you want to do is just be very smooth, apply light to medium brake pressure and very smooth steering until you can stabilize the vehicle at a slower speed, and then check your left side mirror, signal, and when it's clear, then get back on the road. Most people already know that one, I'm pretty sure. So we go over all these techniques, emergency techniques, procedures, so that they can be committed to reflex. So that if that ever happens to you, and it probably won't, but if it does, the fact that you've practiced it, committed it to reflex, and know exactly what to do is the difference between having an accident and not having an accident. So that greatly reduces your risk. Just like if you were a pilot, and this just happened in Denver, pilot took off on I think it was a 777, 747, I'm not sure, but one of the engines immediately caught fire. Well, because of the pilot's training for emergency situations, he knew exactly what to do. Got on the radio and said, Mayday, turned around, got onto the right landing strip and landed, and there were no injuries. And there were even parts of the motor that fell into Broomfield. And just through luck, No one got injured. Somebody got a big airplane souvenir in their yard. I guess it messed up one guy's truck. Because I mean, these things are falling from, I don't know, like a couple thousand feet. So it's kind of a big deal. But again, glad nobody was hurt. But my point is, pilots train for emergency situations. A lot of driver education places don't train for emergency situations, or even the basics, which I consider, stopping your vehicle in the shortest distance. It's a technique. Can you do it? Can you do it comfortably, reflexively? And in the event of an emergency, if you're being safe and a kid jumps out in front of you in a residential area and you have to stop in the shortest distance or hit the kid, do you know what to do? If not, perhaps you're not as safe a driver as you think, and that can be fixed. So anyway, that's techniques. The obvious stuff. I mean, you want to signal for turns and come to complete stops and stop behind the traffic obedience line or the crosswalk if there is no traffic obedience line. Those are all just, knowing the law and following the law. Those aren't particular techniques. Number 4 on the list is making good choices. So here we go. We've got, let's say for the sake of our discussion, we've got good awareness. We're looking way ahead, way behind, left mirror, right mirror, read the signs, check the gauges, and repeat. We're constantly gathering information. And now a series of potential hazards is coming together to make a potentially dangerous situation. So now we have to decide what would be the decision that puts me in the least amount of risk given everything that we have. So that can mean in some cases slowing down, in other cases speeding up, fewer cases, in other cases swerving, in other cases beeping the horn, flashing the lights, any of those things, or putting those things in combination to avoid an accident or to minimize risk. For instance, you look way ahead, and this happened to me as I was coming back from High Plains Raceway today. You look in the distance, traffic was going speed limit and moving along great. And I got to 270, and in the distance, I see everybody's brake lights and they were stopped. Well, I'm still doing 55 miles an hour. So I saw it way in advance. I very lightly applied normal braking and just very easy. There was kind of a person a little bit on my tail, and it was no big deal. Had I not seen it until later and I had to apply brakes abruptly, I could have, gotten rear-ended. The other thing is, do you know the 4 things that you can do if you have a tailgater? And no, one of them is not brake check the tailgater. That's the best way to get rear-ended, not to avoid getting rear-ended. So anyway, there's 4 things. Do you know them? Have you thought about it? All of these, are very important things. And in most cases, no one ever taught anyone these things. So if you were taught to drive by your mom and dad and no one taught them to drive professionally, what happens oftentimes is the same bad habits are passed down from generation to generation. And it doesn't have to be like that. Somebody can get professional training, learn the proper techniques, and then those can be passed down. Like we talked about before, having your hands at 9 and 3, that's kind of a big deal. People are still teaching 10 and 2, 8 and 4, and those really have never been the optimum position for your hands. And again, this is review. The reason is at 9 and 3, it's the only position where you can do 180 degrees of accident avoidance without moving your hands. And that's what you want, whether it's on a twisty, curvy road or a right turn or a left turn, as opposed to making a U turn, which you would use hand over hand. So anyway, choices. And this is another thing that we go over a lot. In other words, if you're behind a big truck and you're invisible, that's not the least risk position to be. You want to be around the truck so that you can see better and people can see you better. If you have the option of being the first one in a line at the light, as opposed to being behind 6 or 7 cars. Again, your visibility is going to be better in that position than behind other cars. Now, the other side of that is when you get the green light, you will have to check before you proceed because other people can be trying to make the yellow light accelerating and they don't make it, and now the light's red. They're going to run a red light. You proceed out first because you're the first one there. You didn't look, and the first inkling that anything wrong is impact because you never looked. So before you start out, even though the light's green, you always want to check. And if there's a car beside you, either let them go a little bit first or get out in front of them and check to make sure that it's clear. Because people run stop signs and stop lights every single day without fail. So, there's a lot of bad drivers out there. So anyway, choices we work on choices for a fair amount of time. We go into downtown traffic where there's lots of one-way streets and right turn on red. And in Boulder, there's plenty of pedestrians and skateboarders and bicyclists and dogs and cats, and not so many cats, but you get the idea. So it's a really good environment for learning the craft because there's a lot of stuff out there. Complete with one-way streets on two one-way streets, which you can turn left on red. If it's from a one-way to a one-way, after you stop, after you yield, and it's only a good decision if you can see clearly. In other words, even though it's the law, you can turn left on red if it's from a one-way to a one-way after you stop, after you yield, and if there's not a sign prohibiting it. But it also has to be a safe decision to do because if you can't see, then even though you could legally do it, you wouldn't want to do it and it wouldn't be a good choice because you'd be pulling out in front of who knows what. So, very important. We also do twisty, curvy roads. We also do interstate highways, how to merge on a highway where the speed limit's 75. You've gotta get up to speed and be going the same or a little faster than the flow of traffic. Sometimes that can be even a little above speed limit because a lot of times people are going above speed limit. And technically, when you're merging, you can't go above the speed limit legally. Well, if there's 3 semis and that's your only place to get on the highway and they're going 5 over, I would suggest going 5 over because, once you merge safely, okay, if you get a ticket, which you could because you were speeding, that's better than getting hit or run off the road by a semi, in my opinion. Not that I've tried both to compare, but intellectually, that would be the better choice. Um, Likewise, on a twisty, curvy mountain road, if you see a bicyclist on the other side, just be ready for people to come into your lane across the double yellow line because some people, it just never occurs to them that when they see a bicyclist and it's around a curve and they can't see, it doesn't occur to them that there could be a car about to have a head-on collision with them if they move out of their lane. Their focus is just getting around the bicyclist, and they don't want to stop or slow down and wait, which would be the appropriate thing to do. And then once you get to a place where you can see the entire space of the pass, then pass and pass quickly. That's how you do that with the least amount of risk. And we do that. And of course, we do parallel parking. A lot of people don't know how to parallel park, and they think they know how to parallel park. And here's the deal on parallel parking, okay? You pull up next to the car, you back up, you get one pull forward. That's it. If you can't parallel park doing that, then sorry, you don't know how to parallel park very well. You don't get to, back up and be over a foot from the curb and then pull forward and back up and pull forward and back up. And now finally, you're less than 12 inches from the curb and you go, look, that looks great. And I know how to parallel park. No, sorry. If you know how to parallel park, you can back up one time, pull forward one time, and you'll be within the maximum is 12 inches from the curb. 6 inches is better. 3 inches is perfect. And that's how you parallel park. I mean, we have a system that we teach that's pretty foolproof. It works on any vehicle, and you just go through the steps, and it's a perfect park every time. And anybody that's taken my class, at the end, what we do, we get out of the car, we look, and if it's really close, we do like a cell at the end of a gymnastics routine. We go, yes, and because I think parallel parking should be an Olympic event. It's just my opinion. So anyway, those are choices. I mean, there's so many choices that you have to make, and everything is always changing. You go from there's no emergencies, no potential hazards, to there's a potential hazard, and then it's aggravated by a tailgater, and then there's a pedestrian that comes out that you didn't see, and now you're in a multiple hazard situation, and you have to make very quick, good decisions, which is why hopefully you've gathered all the information through awareness early, so you already know what's in your left lane, what's in your right lane. So if you have to do a swerve and you're on a multi-lane road, you already know if it's safe to do that. Or maybe you can just go to the left and not to the right, or vice versa. But if both lanes are obstructed with other cars, then you'll have to rely on your braking techniques. Desperate moves would be beeping the horn, flashing the lights. That doesn't usually work, but if you're that desperate, you've really got nothing to lose at that particular point by by doing that. I was once on a motorcycle and I was behind a car, and I had proper distance, all that. I was in the left 1/3, so they could see me out of their left mirror as well as their rear view mirror, which is going to be the position that gives you the most advantage. And he puts the car in reverse and starts slowly backing up. So I start slowly backing up with my feet, because the car behind me was, he gave me ample room. Well, this guy keeps going back and going back, so I start beeping my horn, flashing my lights. And most motorcycles don't have a big, train horn that would actually garner a little bit of respect. Um, so finally, I'm backing up literally to the left so that this guy could back up almost next to me. And I guess he would have hit me if I would have just stayed there. To this day, I have no idea why he was backing up. Just, No idea. But I'll never know that. But he never touched me because I was, backing up and beeping the horn and doing everything that I could. So the other thing is, and this is part of awareness and choices, try to notice the people in the cars. I was as I was going out to High Plains this morning, there was somebody that was in the left lane going 5 miles an hour below speed limit, and they just stayed there. There were like three cars behind them, and they finally, they got around them going into the right lane and passing them. And when I finally came up behind them and went around them, I looked over, and it was two pretty old people, and the person's driving, their mouth was open, and it was as if they were just in a daze. So, I would like to get as far away from that person as possible, or not as far away as possible, but out of their immediate vicinity, because it did not appear that they were a very aware driver, because three people, including me, went around them, and they still just stayed in the left-hand lane for the entire time. So again, I don't know what their deal was. I don't know what their situation was. I just know that from the awareness standpoint and the left lane law, they were not very aware and weren't exercising the best driving techniques. So, anyway, that's choices. Protection is number 5. Here, obviously, always wear your seatbelt. If you're a motorcyclist, always wear, full face helmet, full protective gear. If you're one of the motorcyclists that's cruising around without a helmet on and you think it's about freedom, okay, it is about freedom, I guess. But it just has never made sense to me to risk, getting a rock in your eye at 70 miles an hour, or a bug, or a bird, which has happened to me, not in my eye because I had on a full face helmet. But you want to protect yourself enough so that if unexpectedly a rock comes up, and this has happened to you when you're driving your car. Let's say you're following a big tractor trailer, you didn't see a rock. Where that rock came from that cracked your windshield, to this day, you didn't see it in advance. There wasn't anything you could have done. You couldn't have swerved. You heard it first. It had already impacted your car by the time you heard it. So imagine that, you're on a motorcycle and that happens to you, and it's a rock, and you've got no helmet on. Well, that's not a good thing. So I know it messes up your hair. I've had a helmet on all day being out at the track, and I've got helmet hair, and that's okay with me because I will be wearing a helmet. The only time you'll ever see me on a motorcycle without a helmet on, and I will confess, is moving the bikes from my driveway into the garage, and they're never driven over 10 miles an hour doing this. That's a rule. Because I've had some buddies that didn't think it was going to happen to them. It was in their own driveway. They didn't have any protective gear on. They were in like a t-shirt and shorts and flip-flops, and down they went, and they got turned into road pizza. Yes, they healed up. No, they didn't die, but they will never do that again. They had to learn it the hard way. So it's just, for me, it's just not worth the risk. You'll always see me wear a full face helmet, not a 3/4 helmet, not a half helmet. That's one of the reasons that I don't ride bicycles, is because the little half helmet that the bicyclists wear, I mean, if they fall forward, if they endo, there's no protection for the front of their face. Whereas and they do have, to be fair, they do have full face bicycle helmets. But you don't see a lot of people wearing them, especially just on a regular ride. Whereas with motorcycles, obviously they make, very good helmets with a protective piece right up front. Um, and it's good to have that stuff. Obviously, long sleeves, full coverage gloves, not ones with holes in them, maybe made of leather. That would be nice. And coming up over your wrists, that would be nice. Over the ankle, shoes or boots, long pants, a jacket, or some kind of long sleeves. That's kind of the minimum protection. I've got an arrow stitch suit that has body armor everywhere. It has pockets. It has vents. It's made of Cordura, which isn't quite as good as leather, but it's still pretty good. So, um, whenever and it's more comfortable, especially riding. I like to ride year round. On a cool day, I can put some layers on underneath, and now I have shoulder pads, I have hip pads, I have a back protector, I have knee sliders, I have over the ankle boots, I have multiple layer leather gloves, I have a full face helmet. I'm pretty well protected. And my motorcycle has heated grips, which makes me sound old whenever I say that. And it has cruise control. So between the heated grips and cruise control, I'm pretty comfortable. In my multi-layer suit, I can ride, 40 degrees, 50 degrees, and be very comfortable, especially with the heated grips. They're multiple adjustable as far as the intensity, because they can get so hot that they're actually too hot. So I never thought I'd like them. And, you know, I wasn't going to use them because I used to be a purist. I don't need heated grips or cruise control. That's for, touring bikes. And this is a sport bike. Well, you know what happened? It was a cold day. My hands are getting cold. so I so I push the button and almost instantly my hands are warm. So what are you going to do? So now, if my hands get cold, I use them, and the cruise control is great. I've not had bikes until recently that have had cruise control, because everybody will be riding a motorcycle, and inevitably their right wrist will get kind of cramped up or stiff, and they'll have to roll off the throttle and kind of shake it out, or get some blood back into their wrist. Boy, with cruise control, you can take as long as you need, and it's just great. So, anyway, protection. Always wear your seatbelt. The newer car that you can buy, they're better than older cars as far as crash protection. The newer cars have better crumple zones, and they're built to dissipate the energy. Whereas older cars, the energy was not dissipated. You got to dissipate the energy as the passenger. You got to be Vince the crash dummy. So, newer cars, when I say newer cars, last 10 years, they're better. Even 15 years, they're better than, like, let's say a 30-year-old car, which may be a classic, which may be fun to drive. A lot of the muscle cars, I dearly love them, but in the event of a crash, yeah, they're not as good. The seatbelt systems are not as good. Some of the new cars, the seatbelts will tense up, reducing the distance that the passenger actually travels in an impact. That's safer than to have the old, lap seatbelts, or one seatbelt over the top and it doesn't do anything except stretch. And the person, will travel a further distance, oftentimes come in contact with the dashboard or the windshield and sustain more damage. Whereas if they're tightened up, then that holds you in place better. The seatbelts are still going to stretch. You're still going to go forward, but you're probably not going to come in contact with anything solid. Airbags can be very good, especially side airbags. Front airbags are very good if you're back away from the steering wheel. If you're really short and you're like 2 inches from the steering wheel, airbags are not going to be the best thing for you in some cases. So keep all that in mind from a protection point of view, which is number 5. Um, Number 6 is condition of the car, condition of the driver. If you're preoccupied with something, maybe it would be better not to drive in that moment. Let somebody else give you a ride or take an Uber or a taxi until you can resolve the problem or recover from the hurt or whatever it is that is preoccupying your mind. Because when you drive or ride, it's showtime. It's game on because you never know what's going to happen. So you have to be ready. Also, the condition of the vehicle. You want to have good tires, good brakes, etc., etc., proper tire pressure. All of those things are very important. And when you get in the car, notice how it feels. Do the brakes feel the same? Does the steering feel the same? Or is all of a sudden, does it pull to the left or to the right? That's probably an alignment problem, which will also wear out your tires more quickly, get less gas mileage. So it's money out of the pocket. If your car is not in good condition, it's going to cost you something anyway, so you might as well fix it early. And oftentimes, when that happens, you can minimize the cost. If you have a little oil leak and then it turns into a big oil leak, and then all your oil is gone, and now you have to replace an engine instead of just a seal or a gasket, that's a pretty huge difference. So always look at the condition of your vehicle. If you have a garage, great. If you park your car out on the street, just walk around it. Notice, do I still have air in my tires? Because you could have gone over a nail unbeknownst to you, and your tire's down 10 pounds of pressure, maybe 20 pounds of pressure, but it's not totally flat. Driving on that tire can destroy the sidewall, and now you'll have to buy a new tire. Now, if the tire is worn down and you buy a new tire, you'll probably have to buy a set of tires, because some of the newer cars, if one tire is a bigger diameter than the other 3 tires, then it throws off the ABS, anti-lock braking system. It throws off the active handling, and it can be a big deal. Whereas if you saw that slow leak, you took it directly down to the tire shop, they fixed it. It doesn't cost you very much, and that tire can live out the rest of its life. And in most cases, if you catch a nail, it'll be through the main body of the tire. If it goes into the sidewall, you're not going to be able to fix that anyway. Once the sidewall is compromised, then you just have to get another tire, or, as we've talked about, another set of tires. So condition of the car is very important. Also, on snowy days, start the car up, turn on the defroster, and as you're scraping off the car, if the car wasn't in the garage, go ahead and scrape off the windshield, scrape off the side windows, scrape off the mirrors if you don't have heated mirrors. Obviously, the rear window and even the rear side windows, so that when you get in the car, and also, get some of the snow off the hood. Like, we got 4 inches, and if you just do the windows and you don't do the hood, as soon as you get up to speed, all that snow is going to blow in your windshield anyway. And if your windshield's not heated up, then your wipers may or may not be able to handle it. Also, if you've got a ton of snow on your vehicle and it blows off, it could blow off into another car, and that could be an additional risk for them. So, yeah, it'll take a little longer. Yes, it'll be cold, but that would be the safer procedure of a super safe driver or just a safe driver. Because if you can't see out the windows or your view is compromised, then you're not going to be able to see traffic or other hazards. And that's a big deal. And the last one, and we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because we covered it pretty thoroughly last week, is the type of vehicle. Um, what types of vehicle gives you an advantage in an emergency situation. And just to briefly go over it, you want a low center of gravity, all-wheel drive vehicle with reasonable power. Um, you know, 200 horsepower, 2 to 300 horsepower, would be great. I mean, a little less, maybe 175. But if you've got a car with 100 horsepower, okay. I mean, it's not dangerous, but it does put you at a little bit of a disadvantage, like on merging on the highway, or if you're at a two-way stop and there's a small gap in traffic, and you go out there, you have to have a larger gap than somebody that has a little bit more horsepower. So keep that in mind. So if you do all 7 of these things, you're going to be a pretty safe driver. And that's what I think a safe driver is. What do you guys think? What are some of the elements that I either haven't covered, or you're in agreement or disagreement with me? What do you think? Or are there any questions that, since we're covering this, that you'd like to know about? Because I enjoy when we get comments. Now that we have comments, um, kind of going where you want me to go, or hearing a different point of view, or whatever. So I'll wait for a couple of minutes for any comments or questions. And if there aren't any, this will be kind of a short segment. 15 minutes was wasted trying to figure out how to get this thing going. So I hope it gave you some good information as far as what a safe driver is, and kind of the elements of a safe driver. And it's an ongoing thing. You always want to try to be a better driver. I'm constantly looking, reading articles, looking at videos. Are there better tires? Are there better cars? Are there better, is there a safety thing that's just came out? Like when the autonomous cars started to be advertised, or some of the commercials where they have a person standing in front of the car and the car stops. Well, there's also videos of people standing in front of the cars, and the car was supposed to stop, and the car didn't stop, and the car hit the person. So I don't know. Some of the electronic advances I like the rear cameras. Love those, because nobody ever knew where the rear of their car or truck was without getting out and looking. So that's really great, having a rear camera back there, and having a warning and a display and all that. That's great. I was driving the C8 Corvette and backing it up close to a garage door, and it gave me the warning, and I could see it, and it's pretty accurate. And the only other way that you can do that is get out of your vehicle and look. And most people don't want to do that. The side mirrors, they're pretty cool. The little lights, that tells you that there's somebody in your blind spot or next to you. Some of those work really well. Some of them not so much. I've driven them where they said that it wasn't clear, and it was actually clear. So let's see here. I think I got some. Okay, so I'm not getting any comments, but I'm getting messages. Okay, so let's look at this. What emergencies when self-steering or auto braking fails? What about cars that steer themselves on highways, Tesla, and the new Cadillac? Okay, Mike, thanks for the question. I think that it's I guess if you're an older person and you never really cared for driving, some of these can help you. And when I say help you, if you're a little off here or there, or you didn't see this or that, some of the electronic enhancements will certainly save you. I've driven the new Tesla with the autonomous feature, and it's pretty good, but I think it still needs a little work. And I don't think it says that you're just supposed to let it go unsupervised. I don't think they're making that claim. And if they are making it, I would not do that. I would be ready to take control of the car, having your hands near the steering wheel or on the steering wheel. Same thing with Cadillac. I haven't driven the new Cadillac's system, but I would imagine that I'm sure it's pretty good. But I don't think anybody makes the claim that you can just get into the car and say, take me to Cleveland, Ohio, and read a newspaper, and the car is going to safely take you there. Maybe that exists. I don't think it does. They've still got a little work. They've gotten probably 75% of the way there. If you get out of your lane, it can correct. It does that, or some have the vibrating seats. I'm not a big fan of that. But if you were about to go to sleep and that's why you're veering off the road, that can wake you up for certain. Um, so that's what I think about a mic. And thanks for the question. Let's see here. Okay. Didn't find it. Okay, not finding it. Okay. So I hope I've answered everybody's question. Can somebody give me one more comment just so I know that you're still hearing this? Because I got a bunch of comments and I thought that everybody was hearing it, and then I haven't gotten any comments. So that makes me think that maybe something else happened. So I don't know. So anyway, let's see. We've got one more. Okay. Okay. So hopefully I've answered all your questions. Hopefully you've seen this. Give me comments on my Facebook page on what you thought of it. Give me an idea for the next Tuesday topic. Also, feel free to give me a call, 303-666-4113. Go to the website at go4itservices.com, and it's the number 4, not FOR. My YouTube channel is Go4It space TV. So hopefully you had a good time and I answered all your questions, and I'll get the hang of this one of these days. So have a good one. Be safe, and we'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye.